I just thought he'd be good because I think he's played more games than anybody.
Right.
You're getting faint again.
Yeah, anyways, hello everybody. It's me, Argent, and I'm here with my co-host Serp Kerp, aka the greatest Let's Player of all time. Uh he's been doing some good little LPs lately. You did Resident Evil. What was the other one you did?
Um, what was the other one I played recently? I played
Oh, Night Trap.
Night Trap for. They remastered it. Originally, is for the Sega CD. It was the Cannibal Holocaust of video games in the 90s.
Well, there is a Cannibal Holocaust video game on that console.
There is.
Corpse Killer.
Well, I wanted to play Corpse Killer, but from my understanding, there's no light guns for the PS4.
Oh, okay. So, anyways, sorry, back on topic. So, Serp reached out to me. He said, "Argent, people are saying do a stream together, you assholes. So why don't we talk about the GameCube?" And I'm just like, I'm always down to talk about the GameCube. So I guess I'll just start off with, and then Serp can go. Yeah. So the GameCube was probably the third. I'm not sure if it's the second or third. I'd say real game console I got. I had a Sega Genesis, but it really, I really didn't play it very much. I didn't have very many games for it. I guess the N64 was the first kind of real console I actually played a lot on. Like I remember getting Majora's Mask when it first came out, and Donkey Kong 64 when that first came out. And there's a lot of good N64 games. I don't think the console's aged well, and we could talk about that. I don't know how I used that shit controller as a kid. It is probably the worst controller ever. But then I remember getting the GameCube. I think it was 2002. It was right after Metroid Prime came out. I was so excited to just sit down and play GameCube for the first time. I remember I got a Wavebird, which I still regard as being the gold standard of one of the, if not the best, wireless controllers of all time. I just remember sitting down, playing Metroid Prime, and just being super happy. When did Halo come out? Was that 2001 or was that 2000?
Halo was 2001. It was the original Xbox's launch game.
Yeah, because I remember a friend of mine had an Xbox and I'd gone over to play Halo and I was really jealous. Just because I'd only been playing like N64 games and then Halo came out. And then I got Metroid Prime and I'm like, this is good. But no, the GameCube I think is very underrated. And I think it's aged better than, maybe not as good as, well, better than the original Xbox. I don't know about the PS2. But the GameCube, I think, had over time built a really good library of exclusives. We had being like and even just some of the ports were better versions. You had, like, I remember Tales of Symphonia, Baden Kaitos 1 and 2. You had obviously Wind Waker. You had stuff like Battalion Wars, Super Mario, Sunshine. There's just a huge range of stuff, much of it kind of unique and only for the GameCube. The controller, I also think, will kind of weird and not really good for shooters. Wasn't that bad for what it was. And I kind of appreciate that they did.
I actually think the GameCube controller is probably the best controller ever made. I think it's the most ergonomic. I think it's more ergonomic than the Xbox
Oh,
or
sorry,
the
1 second. Someone brought
PS2.
up, I'm sorry, I forgot. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle was the best Sonic game and one of the best games ever made, in my humble opinion. Sorry, continue.
I mean, like we could just list them out, but I was just wondering, if you, I kind of had like, I wanted to talk about my own story of how I got it.
No, I just wanted to go first, so go ahead. Tell your story.
Okay, sorry to push in for a second, but anyway, so the first console I ever got was the GameCube, and I got it at launch for Christmas. So basically, like, when I was growing up, my first experience with video games was like my mom had an Atari 2600, and then she had me play it right before she sold it off at a garage sale, and I got really like upset and confused why she would do that. Want to like hate post against my own mom, but it's just like, why would you do that to your own kid? But anyway, I played a PlayStation 1 with some of my cousins. They showed me, and I played like Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, and other stuff like that with them. And then I played some Sega Genesis with other
I'm gonna
cousins
be
of mine.
honest, I really don't like the visuals of the PS1.
We could talk about that later
Yeah,
once we
I'm
get
just
past that, I
yeah,
guess.
just
But
saying. Go ahead.
it's kind of in the question: as the N64 aged well, as the PS1 aged well? But I had other cousins I played Genesis with, but I really wasn't really introduced to video games until I got a GameCube in 2001 at launch, and that was the first system I ever had. Um, I didn't I didn't have very good like dexterol, is that the way to say it? Like,
Dexterity.
yeah, dexterity. So they recommended that I should get into video games to my parents. I didn't really ask for video games or anything. I wasn't very impressed with them up until then. But my parents got me that as a way to improve my dexterity. And, I played some games, and like the initial games that I have were just like a lot of it was just shovelware, or like not very good games. So like the first games I got Luigi's Mansion, which was too I didn't, as like a young elementary school kid, like I didn't understand like really how to play it. And then my
Although it does
grand
kind of seem like something down your alley.
well, I mean, now I really like that game.
Yeah, 'cause it's like a horror game that's a parody of what was it, of Resident Evil?
It's a parody of Resident Evil 1 with the mansion, and slowly unlocking this mansion, having all a huge amount of the backtracking and stuff like that. But then they got me like Tarzan Unleashed. My grandparents got me that, and those are like the initial like two games I had. I didn't play them very much, and then like the Spider-Man, like the first Sam Raimi movie came out, so I got like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man game. And I wasn't playing these games very much. Again, I would like play a game, and then if you've probably seen, I'm not very good at games, and this is like a long-standing thing that where I just play games and like not know what to do and get stuck at the very beginning. Until I kind of got the internet and was able to like watch long plays or something and like figure out how to get unstuck. So anyway, like those are my initial games. Other than Luigi's Mansion, none of them are very impressive. And then like my dad was like, "Well, I'll play video games with you." So then he got a bunch of racing games, like Burnout, movie tie-in like Driven, which is awful, and then like Smashing Drive, and then he got me like a Namco arcade collection. And like most of the games I initially got for the GameCube weren't very impressive. I think those are most of the initial ones. I got like this really awful Batman animated series tie-in game and just stuff like that. Eventually, I think my favorite early game I got was actually like a Godzilla fighting game, like
Destroy All
Destroy All
Monster
Monsters.
Melee,
Yes, which is
which is
still
not
is one of my favorite
which
games.
is not very deep, but it is like a lot of fun. It's a really fun game at like a party.
It's a very fun game if you're a Godzilla. Like it's one of those things where you don't like Godzilla. It's like, well, this is an all right fighting game, but if you love Godzilla, it's like a masterpiece. So that was like my original favorite game. I would rent like Rogue Squadron 2 or like Mario Sunshine or something like that, but like I wouldn't get those games. Like my parents wouldn't buy them for me. And um
They would only buy you
I didn't have
shovelware
a
and garbage.
yeah, they would end up, or it might be my own fault that I'd be like, I want the shovelware like garbage game. So like I got a lot of shovelware. I got like an old like an out of date like 2 or 3 years previous. I think like NFL Blitz, and then like an baseball game, because like at this time I didn't explore, I didn't have the internet, and I didn't I wasn't like conscious to like look for things that were good. So I'd just kind of be exposed to something, or like there'd be like a shovelware game that'd be like $10 or $20 on sale, and then I'd get it. And like most of my friends, they all had PlayStation 2s, and I would play like sports games with them. Like Madden to a normie is like the only video game that they would play. At least in Montana, that was like the number one video game. And then I had like a lot of friends that would be playing like James Bond first person shooters and stuff on PS2 and stuff like that. So eventually, like in 2003 or 2004, my parents eventually got me a PS2, and I really hadn't been exposed to any of the GameCube games. Eventually, like I'd be a dumbass kid, even though I compiled a huge PS2 collection, I'd be a dumbass kid. And when my parents eventually got me an Xbox 360, I sold off essentially like 90% of my PS2 collection, and then to try and get Xbox 360 games only to have it red ring a death on me. So at that point, I didn't really have like any video games at all. And then I turned back to GameCube games, and like I'd mow like lawns and stuff and get money. And because the Wii and the Xbox 360, which I had and broke, and the PS3 were out, retro games became really cheap, and I started getting into a lot of GameCube games. And that's when I really experienced the quality of the GameCube. It wasn't during the GameCube's initial run, but rather afterwards.
See, for me, I was subscribed to Nintendo Power for like years and years and years. So I fortunately kind of had that to tell me like what to get and what to not get. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I was I was just a big Nintendo fan. Like I think the other one of the other greatest consoles of all time is the Game Boy Advance, which has a very good library of games to it. And I mean, you got to give Nintendo credit. They've dominated the handheld market since whenever the original Game Boy came out.
Like 1989 or 1990 or
Yeah, they've
something.
more or less just completely like blown everyone out of the water. And Sony periodically introduces some like thing that doesn't work out, but I think Nintendo just really figured out the formula. You make something that's just very ergonomic, that's very like durable, that's very just kind of easy. I find a lot of the place, I don't know, I just don't like any of the Vita or the PSP or any of that stuff.
Yeah, the thing about Nintendo as a company is that their business model is fairly conservative. Is a lot of like I've streamed with this guy like Black Kanye before, and he will talk about his disappointments that Nintendo never developed, like to this day, a high quality online service. Like there was no online gaming for the GameCube, basically, right?
Was there on PS2?
There was on PS2, but it wasn't very high quality. In fact, there was also one on Dreamcast before PS2 came out as well. But like the 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 Nintendo has always been very conservative in their basic model, which sometimes pays off and sometimes doesn't. So like their basic model is always like first party games, our own internal development teams. That's what makes or breaks a console. I recently read this book called The Ultimate History of Video Games, which begins from like the early like vector graphics games of the 1960s and continues through and even like before that with like pinball and like before World War II, and it continues through all the way until the failure of the Dreamcast. And what you see over and over again is that Nintendo is a very stable but very conservative company, which is based around the ultimate idea of what sells a game is number one, exclusives to consoles, and that secondly, power, like the power of the console isn't important. The quality of the games is what's important. And so Nintendo, over and over again, their business model has been to make profit on the console itself and then to sell first party games, while most other video game console companies' model has been to lose money by building a very powerful system and then to regain that through software sales. Often those software sales will be developed, the software will be developed by third party companies.
See,
So it's a
it's
different business model. I mean, Sony obviously has mastered that business model to to de- to sell something at a loss and then recoup it through software sales over time.
See, I think an aspect it Nintendo I think success in part is kind of correlated to how expensive and how good personal computers are because a lot of the games for particularly Xbox also come out on PC. So if you have a good PC like me, there's occasionally like something like Bloodborne maybe or Persona or something that comes out for a console other than the Nintendo console, but most of the main like AAA games also come out for PC, and I have a good PC. Whereas Nintendo just has a lot more exclusives that are only on their consoles.
Hmm.
Um, Also, part of that is they tend to have unique hardware, at least from the time of the Wii forward, which makes it once again kind of a distinct thing.
Yes, and that so if you do you want to get into why the GameCube failed?
Sure, go ahead.
So ultimately, I don't know what the numbers of the generations are. I think this is so-called the seventh generation of video game console, and that's Dreamcast, PS2, Xbox, GameCube. Obviously, the ultimate failure is going to be Sega. They had like numerous problems that led to the Dreamcast failing. So even though the Dreamcast technically outsold the Saturn, they were essentially in a hole from the Saturn in that they had to sell a hugely disproportionate amount of Dreamcast to stay in business. So after 2 years, they weren't able to sell enough Dreamcast, and then they left the console market. Ultimately, a lot of Sega's been, even though in the Genesis and the Super Nintendo era, Sega was Nintendo's greatest enemy. Ironically, now they usually work as like a second party developer, and most of the best Sega games are exclusive to Nintendo products. Oh, okay. Somebody says it's sixth gen. So anyway, so the sixth gen um starts out with the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast, I really like all these consoles of this generation. Yeah, Princess Rescue is talking about the Dreamcast. So Sega would follow a model where they would lose money on consoles by developing very powerful consoles and that they would try to recoup it through software sales, but they weren't able to sell enough Dreamcasts fast enough. Plus, the failure of the Saturn meant that even though the Dreamcast sold much more rapidly and was more successful comparatively in the time it existed than the Saturn, Sega ultimately failed. And in fact, the I think the not the CEO, but the guy that had the highest amount of stock, he sold off like he gave them a gift of like $300 million to prevent them from going into bankruptcy, predicated under that they would become a third party publisher. So anyway, Dreamcast fails, and the PS1, which came out last time, was like hugely powerful. It destroyed the Saturn, obviously, defeated Sega, and it outsold the N64 3-1. So the PS2 comes out. It can play. Um, it
Well,
can play
DVDs were still
DVD.
very novel at the time, wasn't it? Like, I don't think a lot of people owned or a lot of people didn't own a DVD player.
So many people say the main reason, and you'd go like there's friends that I have where they would, when the PlayStation 2 became cheap, what they would do is that they would buy multiple PlayStation 2s and the parents would just use them as DVD players, and they'd plug them into the different TVs in their house. They use as DVD players, and then like if they had multiple kids, then their kids would be able to play on the PlayStation 2 at the same time. I remember that being a thing. That was a thing way like past like Xbox 360 and PS3. Like PS2 continued to like outsell Xbox 360 and like PS3 like well into the next cycle of consoles. So PS2 was the most successful console of all times. It released in 2000. It destroyed what remained of Sega, and it was basically this undefeatable juggernaut. It was, I think it might technically be the weakest console of the four, but the thing is like Sony has a distinct advantage over Sega because Sony is a huge corporation with multiple electronics developers, so that they have vertical integration. So they are able to make a significantly cheaper console and absorb any costs that Sega wasn't able to do, and that's one of the main reasons why the Saturn was defeated. So anyway, going into the next console, Nintendo tries to develop the most powerful console that it possibly can, and it develops the GameCube. But in doing so, it doesn't have a DVD drive because Nintendo is very phobic of piracy, and it continued to use cartridges on the N64 to its detriment, even though the N64 was the most powerful console of its generation.
Although I do think it meant there was basically no load times.
Yeah, there is that advantage, but it also negates any kind of It's very difficult to make
No, I mean it is a drawback. Although interestingly, the like the Switch uses cartridges again.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, the GameCube comes out, and then Microsoft comes out, and because they're such a big corporation, when they enter the console race, it doesn't really matter how successful their initial console is. So they develop also a very powerful console, and the first console with an inboard hard drive. And the Xbox comes out, and that they assume that they're going to lose money on it. So basically, what they do is that they like flood the market with huge amounts of advertisements that Sony nor Nintendo could compete with. Just hundreds of millions of dollars of advertisement money.
Sorry, if I could just interrupt for a minute. Okay, so near where I live, there's something called the Pacific Mall, which was in Markham. It's like 90% Chinese, so the whole thing is just covered from top to bottom in counterfeit shit. And there would be huge just baskets full of counterfeit DVDs and counterfeit like games. There was never any pirated GameCube games because they couldn't pirate them, but there was just barrels full of pirated PS2 games. So they probably, I don't know how much money they wound up making because they couldn't pirate, but I think it maybe arguably was the right decision.
It goes into one of those conservative philosophies of Nintendo that perhaps there's downsides to making something that can't be pirated as easily, like having less disk space by having a mini disc as opposed to a full-fledged DVD. But they believe that preventing the piracy is more important. And in the West, there's much less piracy than in the East, where it's out of control in, say, like China.
Also, once again, the first party games are the single most important aspect of a Nintendo console.
And that's always been their business model. If you go through that book, The Ultimate History of Video Games, all the Nintendo people talk in depth of how important it is to base your whole system on first party titles. So anyway, so they develop mini discs, which limit the amount of available space. So, did you ever get Resident Evil 4 for GameCube?
No, I had the Wii version.
Did you have Resident Evil Remake for GameCube?
No, I started playing Resident Evil games after I got my Wii.
Okay, so those have like multiple discs, and a lot of the more powerful games of those generation that were on the GameCube
Things
had
that
to
are
have
fully
multiple discs.
voiced had to, because I know Bane Kato's both ones had 2 discs. Tales of Symphonia had 2 discs. I think anything that had a lot of dialogue were.
And from the point of view as a third-party publisher, that's essentially like that's a very hard thing to impose upon them because that increases how much money they're going to make through direct sales of your game. So a lot of publishers were kind of not interested in publishing games because of that. That's one of the problems. And Nintendo believes that the main reason that the GameCube failed, I didn't go so the total sales figures I'm going to have to look up best-selling consoles just a second, but basically PS2 just wrecks it out of the park. PS2 just wrecks it out of the park. They have 155 million units sold worldwide. And then, like, the original Xbox, they have 24 million in comparison, and the GameCube has like 21, 22 million. So, I mean, how many, like, so Sony outsold all, if you count, like, Dreamcast, so 10 million plus, like, 32 million with the GameCube. What did that be? 56 million. So essentially, Sony outsold all his competition by 3 times. And Nintendo saw this as a massive failure, and that they had slow sales throughout the cycle of the GameCube. So ultimately, they would switch to their new strategy, which is called Blue Ocean, where they would deliberately make unique consoles that do not try to be similar to Sony or to Xbox, and that they would have a unique design that would set them apart from the competition with every succeeding console, and indeed handheld. So that's where you have the Wii, the Wii U, the Switch, 3DS with its 3D, and the Stylus with the DS, which has made Nintendo be much more successful.
I think the DS and the 3DS were like by far the best selling consoles of that generation. Um, I guess that'd
DS
be
is the
seven.
second best-selling console of all time with 54 million.
Yeah, well, they kept so I just okay if I can just cut in. So a couple years back when I started working and I had to commute like 3 hours a day, I got a 3DS. And then one of the cool things about the 3DS was that it was backwards compatible with all the DS games. So I could go through and just get a whole bunch of DS games. And both had a great library. Like, you had multiple generations of Pokemon games, which were all great. You had a lot of good JRPGs. They even did stuff like there was a port of Metal Gear Solid 3. There was a bunch of trying to think. Yeah, there's a bunch of like good JRPGs, a bunch of Shin Megami Tensei games, first party Nintendo games. There was Fire Emblems. There was like a really solid library. It's kind of interesting because the 3DS and the DS had a much more mature or adult, I guess you could say, oriented game catalog than you might think. Because, like I said, a lot of the kind of like M-rated or very esoteric JRPGs also saw ports on the 3DS.
So you had an N64, right?
Yeah.
What did you play any games from Rare?
Yeah, I had Donkey Kong. Diddy Kong Racing, I think, is Rare. I forget what else Rare put out.
So Rare came out with like 007, GoldenEye,
Yeah,
uh,
GoldenEye.
Banjo Kazooie. They had the Diddy Kong and the Donkey Kong 64. They had Perfect Dark and they had Conker's Bad Fur Day. So they were the second party developer, which wasn't directly owned by Nintendo, but Nintendo owned most of their the biggest amount of stock of any sole developer. So they made games directly for Nintendo and would use Nintendo characters like Donkey Kong. So going into the GameCube, what Xbox does is this power move because it's this massive corporation which is bigger than both Sony and GameCube, is they just outright buy Rare and prevent the GameCube from having its most important non-directly Nintendo-owned developer. So it went from a quasi Nintendo developer to being directly owned by Microsoft. That's also one of the reasons that people considered the GameCube to be a failure. It lost Rare, which was like its most prestigious developer during the N64 era. And I remember distinctly, do you remember the GameCube being like not cool when you're in like grade school?
Oh yeah, people made fun of me for having one.
The do you play Pretendo? Did anybody call it Pretendo?
Yeah, stuff like that.
So the GameCube, I think it was kind of the peak of like people saying this is for little kids. This is a baby toy kind of thing. And Nintendo's brand really hurt from that under the GameCube.
I think it actually got worse, a lot worse under
The
Wii.
Wii.
I feel like in terms of the actual game library, it was a lot more kiddie under the Wii.
There is like I think like Killer 7 and like Silent Hill games and stuff on the Wii, but there's also all the Resident Evil games on the GameCube.
I was thinking you also had. I just think you had Second Sight, which I was doing a playthrough of. Like you had Lost Kingdoms. There was you had Eternal Darkness. There was like M-rated games on the GameCube.
I never really thought that was. I never really understood that. I like when I was.
I think
kid,
it's because
like,
it looks cutesy. I think is kind of the reason.
but now it's like the GameCube is awesome. Like it's like I could like drop it, it won't get hurt. It has a handle I can carry.
It's
Like
nice and small.
it's like I would say now of that generation, it's the most aesthetic console. But like,
Well, tastes have changed, so I mean,
but when I was like, when I was a kid, I definitely, like I said before, I definitely felt that kind of like stress of like everybody else has a PS2, the GameCube's dorky, and so I switched to PS2. And I remember when the GameCube was out because it was struggling, it rapidly cut its price tag to be the cheapest console. So there was a point where like all the GameCubes were made into like $100 in America, and like it was just kind of also the cheap alternative to like owning a Xbox or a PS2 as well.
sorry if I could just interrupt. Just I was just thinking, there's a lot of Nintendo has a lot of like mainline series where there's never been like a mainline game that's been a disaster. Like there's Zelda mainline games I don't like, but I don't think there's ever been one that like didn't make a large profit. I don't think there's ever been like a Fire Emblem game that got like the worst Fire
There's
Emblem.
never a Sonic 2006.
Like the worst, most people think the worst modern Fire Emblem game is probably Fates, but Fates still did so well in terms of sales that it led to Three Houses and it led to them a lot of renewed interest in it. But like I don't know if there's ever been like a mainline Fire Emblem game or a mainline Zelda or even a mainline Pokemon game that anyone said is bad. They've been like below par for this series, but none of them will ever like come close to what like a being a B title or even like a shovelware or something else.
I'm kind of bad at. I'm done with rounding out my reasons why the GameCube failed. I do kind of think that the blue ocean strategy and market saturation kind of is. I think that that's kind of like the outlying thing, and that they didn't have a DVD player like the PS2 did.
Um Now, okay, so the Wii is something that always kind of baffles me. How well it did. Okay, sorry, I just have to respond to a couple of these. People think that Mario Sunshine is the worst Mario. Mario Sunshine was kind of weird. I don't really like platformers that much, but I'll give them credit. They tried to do something different. Maybe it didn't entirely succeed, but they tried. Okay,
It's very difficult. I think that you have to keep that in mind. It's as far as 3D Mario goes, it's very difficult, but I like it better than Galaxy because Galaxy gives me motion sickness.
I don't really like Mario games that much. I like some of the like I liked Paper Mario and I liked Mario plus Rabbids and some of the others. I just don't really like platformers. I liked Fire Emblem Awakening. I maybe Star Fox Zero was bad. I haven't played it. Uh, the Wii though, like I thought that the motion controls for the Wii were shit, and I thought they were shit the first time I played it. I got a Wii solely because Twilight Princess came out on the Wii. Um, which is something I don't regret because Twilight Princess
And
is
Twilight Princess, like the GameCube version, is probably like $200 now or something.
it's something like that. But Twilight Princess is my I don't know if people will give me crap for this. It's my favorite Zelda game, and I think it was worth it just for that. There's occasionally a game like Persona 5. I literally got a PS3 just because I wanted to play Persona 5, and I think it was worth it. The Wii, I just don't think the Wii was very good. I think the controls were shit. I just thought it was not very well made. I think the Wii U was even worse. The thing I like about this,
I'm gonna disagree with the Wii U.
really, okay.
I didn't own a Wii U, but my friend did, and we played like a lot of games on the Wii U were pretty good. I think that the Wii U's main fault is that it wasn't a fully realized Switch. Like they wanted to make a Switch, but they didn't have the full technology to make it both mobile and like a home console. So it's like this weird like tablet thing that's ungodly. And the second thing is like Wii U is a terrible title. So all these people, because there is like this expansion that like improved the motion controls on the original Wii. And so I think a lot of people thought that the Wii U was just an expansion of the Wii. And because I think there were surveys that like Nintendo fans didn't realize that the Wii U existed and stuff like that. So like the Wii U failed because of like that ungodly
I don't
tablet.
think it really got much third party support, did it?
It had like 13 million sales before they switched the Switch, but like it didn't. The Wii had like awful third party. Like the Wii U had better third party support than the Wii. Like the Wii had like it would get like Call of Duty 4 like 5 years after it came out on like Xbox 360 and stuff like that. And it would there's all these games that just never came out that were all on both 360 and Xbox 360. Like I think it had the worst third party support of any Nintendo console actually. Actually. But
Well,
I mean, there like Mario Maker. I played Mario Maker and had a great time with it. And we played a lot of the Smash that was on Wii U, and just had a great time with it. And there used to be this place we would go, and there'd be like people that would just meet up, and we just play fighting games like all night long. And I mean, the Wii U. I mean, Smash was really good on the Wii U. It's just that I think that Nintendo just didn't market it, and people literally thought it was just a Wii.
Oh, I will say one really good thing for the Wii is that it had backwards compatibility with the GameCube,
Yeah, so
which
I was
is
gonna
I thought
talk
was
about
really
the
nice.
legacy of the Wii too, and I think that goes into why the GameCube became better over time than it originally was. Is like when my Xbox 360 burnt out, and then I went back and bought all these GameCube games for like and PS2 games for like $5, $1, $2 at pawn shops, $3 at pawn shops. When there's just fire sales of like dumbass kids like me trying to do the same thing I did and was like completely fucking retarded for doing. You didn't ever shop at pawn shops growing up, did you?
No, we didn't really have anywhere near where I lived.
There's a obviously like in Montana there's a fuck ton. So like I have this huge PS2 collection and like a pretty good GameCube collection of getting all these games for less than $10 at GameSpot or at GameSpot and pawn shops and stuff. And I noticed that like there'd be all these PS2 games and all these original Xbox games, but there wouldn't be GameCube games. There'd be one or two GameCube games at GameStop or um at any pawn shop, and it would be like, what the hell? And what was going on is that people would sell off their GameCubes and then just play GameCube games on their Wii and not play any Wii games.
Interesting.
So like I think somebody was talking about like how amazing the backwards compatibility for PS1 is on PS2. I think like that's amazing, and that's why the PS2 really is my favorite console of all time. But like the backwards compatibility on the Wii for the GameCube is like amazing, and the GameCube is essentially like the Wii is essentially a GameCube. From my understanding, the Wii is a GameCube with more RAM, and the Dolphin emulator plays the Wii and the GameCube equally as well because
And the
the
Wii's
Wii is
even
essentially a
smaller and more
GameCube.
portable than the GameCube.
hmm
It's also
So
built like a brick.
yeah, so what I remember is like all these people would get the Wii as a novelty game, or like all the like. So what ended up happening with my family is like my sisters and my parents would buy Wii's and literally just use them to play Netflix on, which is hilarious because they eventually became like $60 or $40 at pawn shops or at like Hastings or GameStop, and they would just buy them to like use them to play Netflix in their rooms, which is funny. But um, all these people that had Wii's, including me, we just end up playing GameCube games, and I think like the GameCube as a console has had a second life through the Wii to a certain extent.
Yeah. Oh well, yeah, because then you don't have to dig out your old GameCube, and the Wii. A lot of people sold their Wii's. Um, I really like the Switch, so I had just got it because so instead of a bonus, they're like you did a good job this year, Argent. Buy something for yourself under $500, and we'll reimburse you. So because I commute so much, I got a Switch just kind of for the hell of it. But it's actually a really good console. I mean, once again, sure, it's not nearly as powerful as a PS5 or 6 or whatever the fuck we're on. But if I want like a really I have a good PC. So if I want something like that, then I'll go and like something really like if I want to play Far Cry 6 or something. But if I want to play like Link's Awakening, and they've been releasing a lot of good remakes. Like they released a remake of Link's Awakening, they're releasing a remake of some of the DS Pokemon games. Um they like there's just a lot of there's a very good library they've put out for the Switch. There's also like Fire Emblem Three Houses, Zelda games, Metroid games. Um, I think they've done a lot of ports of like PlayStation 2 era games or PlayStation era 3 games like Valkyria Chronicles and something. But I think you can say a lot about the Switch with the exception of the controller which broke. I mean it works. Like you take it out and it's a perfectly functional handheld console and a perfectly functional dock console. So it actually, when I first heard the idea, I thought it was going to suck, but I think it actually, I'm not sure how well the sales of the Switch have been, but I would assume they're pretty good.
Well, the Switch is like doing like incredibly well actually. From my understanding, it has 89 million. It's been out for like 3 or 3.5 years, right? And it has like 89 million sales, and so the Xbox One had 46 million. So it's already doubled the Xbox, almost doubled the Xbox One sales, and it continues on. The PS4, I mean, it won that generation, but it depends if you want to count the Switch as part of that generation. Anyway, the Switch is doing quite well.
Well, does
It
it
may end
also
up beating
depend what you
PS4.
count the new 3DS as?
What do you mean?
Because they made the new 3DS.
I thought the new 3DS got discontinued recently.
No, I just, was that part of the PS4 generation, or what generation
It's
was it from?
fucking confusing. I think it's the pre like handhelds should be considered their own generations.
Yeah, I don't think they should be counted. It's confusing.
Um but yeah, I think something that's really like to continue and give the GameCube Steam as well. I have never run it, but are you a bad boy? Do you run Dolphin?
Yeah.
Okay, how does Dolphin run?
It runs really good.
How does it run compared to the PS2 emulator?
I find it runs better, or at least the program's easier to use.
Mm-hmm. So there, from my understanding, Xbox emulation until relatively recently basically didn't exist,
Well, what's
and that
kind of the
it's a
reason?
clusterfuck. Um, People haven't figured out how to run it,
No,
and
I'm just saying, like, why would you even? There's most Xbox exclusive games are also on PC, like
yeah, but
Halo ones.
yeah, but what I'm trying to get at is time goes on because the GameCube of its generation has the best emulator, and the disk drives are failing. Like I was streaming all these PS2 games, and then my PS2 disk drive just failed on me. Is that the console that has the best emulator is going to remember the best, and because the Dolphin works so well, ultimately the legacy of the GameCube is that it'll probably
Because
be the best remembered
I know
console
when
of
I
that
was
generation.
doing, because I was streaming Lost Kingdoms and Dolphin, you can up the resolution, you can improve the texture quality. There's all kinds of shit you can do, and it looks a lot nicer than the original GameCube did. Just because, like I said, you can up the resolution so much higher than what it originally was, and it you can play it perfectly well using a 360 or an Xbox One controller.
Hmm. And I think that the GameCube, as time goes on, is going to be considered to be a better and better console. Even though it didn't sell that well, I think its cult has only grown with time and will
It's kind
continue
of
to
like
grow.
with the Dreamcast.
Yeah, I personally love the Dreamcast,
No, but
but
I mean, I feel like people didn't really like it, like care that much about it. But now in retrospect, it got a big cult following.
I'm gonna say something that's probably maybe it'll get me burned alive. The Dreamcast controller, I know the VMU is amazing, but the Dreamcast controller almost sucks as hard as the N64 controller. It's like not very ergonomic.
I've never really sat down and played the games that I've played are ports onto
Oh,
the GameCube, like Skies of
Sonic Adventure
Arcadia.
1 and
Yeah,
2.
and Skies of Arcadia Legends, which might be the greatest JRPG of all time. But
Okay, so is there anything else you want to talk about the history of the GameCube before we go have this list of the best GameCube games I wanted to go through with you?
okay,
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
nope.
You think so? I personally find it very sad and depressing that like eventually all these disk drives will fail, and without emulation, there's not going to be a future for a lot of these games. And I kind of think that that console generation was the best generation. Like that was kind of like the peak of AAA video games. At least was like PS1 era, the like then the PS2 era, And then in the PS3 era, I don't know how to go like what generation it is, but Xbox 360 and PS3 era and Wii era, the quality of games kind of diminished, and like the quantity really diminished, because the price, the how much you had to spend to develop games just started increasing geometrically. And so
Yeah, well, development costs went up, and so like everything had to be AAA. But because it's weird, because there is, I'd say, a lot more AAA games than there was previously, but to the detriment that there wasn't really anything else. Also, I think there was a lot of consolidation. Like EA literally bought up like every independent game studio and drove them
mhm.
all into the ground. Like Westwood, like what was the other big one?
So
BioWare.
apparently Microsoft's strategy to win with the Xbox Series X is to just use its massive power as the software monopoly, just buy up every game studio and turn them into first party companies. Like they bought Bethesda recently, and they're just buying game studio after game studio and turning them into first party development companies. But anyway, do you want to go through? I have this list of the best GameCube
Sure,
games.
why don't you, yep, sure.
Did you ever play? We're gonna start at 50. Did you play Star Wars Rogue Squadron 3?
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I'm just bad at flight simulators. It was a good
Um,
game. It's just I'm bad at it.
I don't think it's as good as the second game.
I'd
Um,
agree. The
it
ground
when you
missions
run
aren't
around
very
as a
good.
person, it's really awkward.
No, they're not good.
But you can play through the second game is two-player co-op, which is awesome.
I'm gonna say one other thing, just more on the subject. It's funny how would you say that the Star Wars games are the best licensed game series of all time?
Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of exceptions. There are,
The
I think,
Bond games
licensed
are
games.
good. That's the
Yeah,
only other.
Bond games are pretty good. Sometimes the Alien games are
Maybe
good.
the Batman games some of the time.
I think Spider-Man is actually the best superhero
Yeah,
in games. Um, yeah, probably Star Wars, because I mean, they had their own development studio for a long time. There was like LucasArts had a development studio which exclusively made Star Wars games, which Disney shut down.
and they made like real games. Like there isn't that many, at least of the LucasArts ones, that are just made like the shitty movie tie-ins just for the sake of it. Like they were real games.
Mhm. Okay, 49. Did you ever play Legend of Zelda: Four Swords Adventures?
No, I played the original Four Swords on Game Boy Advance, but no, it looked like a good game though.
I never played it myself. I actually don't like Zelda that much. Do you play Mario Strikers?
No.
Okay, let's continue. I don't know why it's so low on the list, but what do you think of Mario Sunshine?
Um, Once again, good game. I'm just not good at those, so I just find them frustrating. That's just because I have bad reflexes. It's a good game.
It's really difficult. Like I think it's a very good game, but it's the most difficult 3D game of Mario, and the thing about it is like when you'll play the levels, a lot of the levels will be covered in poison. So you'll like run out of water on your sprinklers and then drop in poison, and I just die over and over again. I'm sure that anybody that's seen my Let's Plays can imagine what it looks like me playing Mario Sunshine. Okay, WarioWare Incorporated Mega Party game.
No, but it looked good.
I never played it. Did you play Beautiful Joe
Beautiful
2?
Joe is fucking awesome. Both of them are, particularly one, but both of them are fucking awesome. You'd probably like Beautiful Joe. It's pretty
I
kino.
never played Beautiful Joe 2. I played Beautiful Joe 1, ironically the PS2 port when I got a PS2. I remember liking it a lot, and I've considered doing a Let's Play of it, but I suck ass at it. So, duh.
It seems like your kind of thing. I liked it a lot.
Okay, Resident Evil 2.
I didn't play it on the. I that was before I started playing horror games, so
Okay. I actually have not played Resident Evil 2 that much. I have the N64 version, and yeah, I like started up to like try it. I got it for like 50 cents or something, and I'm sure it's worth like $40 now, but I got it for 50 cents to see what was happening, and then I just got eaten on the first screen. Inner Karuga?
Ikaruga?
Ikaruga?
No, but that is like one of the classics.
I tried to play it on Dreamcast, and this is a recording a theme. I got my ass kicked.
Well, it's known for being one of the hardest games like ever.
I don't know how to pronounce this, but Baton Chaos
Oh,
Origin.
Bane Kato's Origins. Yep, I have that.
What was your thoughts on it?
Really good, very difficult. As far as JRPGs of that era, but really good game.
Okay, Chibi Robo?
I didn't play Chibi Robo.
Me neither. I was hoping we could get somebody else on this, but he didn't show up. I remember he was very committed to the GameCube, so oh well. Did you ever play Mario Golf?
No.
Did you have the Sonic Mega Collection?
No.
So the Sonic Mega Collection is where you have like Poyu Poyu, because it was like named in US like Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. And then you have Sonic, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic 3D Blast. And that's most of the Sonic I've played has been on that. And it just kind of goes with Sega being a like if you wanted to play Sonic or really Sega games, you wanted to get them on the GameCube.
Once again,
failed.
I don't really like 2D Sonics, not because they're bad, I'm just not good at them and I find them frustrating. So, yeah.
I think Sonic 2 is one of the best games ever made. Okay, we already talked about Beautiful Joe 1 and 2, so did you play Simpsons Hit and Run?
No, but I've heard a lot of good things about it.
I played it on the Xbox, on my cousin's Xbox. I remember it being fun, but I'm not really a Simpsons fan.
I think Simpsons fans like it. I think it was a generally pretty good game, and people were really happy who were Simpsons fans.
Yeah, the same way I was really happy with Godzilla Destroy All
Yeah.
Monsters. Did you play Beyond Good and Evil?
No, that's one of those like classics I never got around to.
Parker, it did have Sonic and Knuckles. Maybe I just didn't say that one. Did you ever play Burnout 2 Point of Impact?
No.
I really like the Burnout games, but I never really played Point of Impact. I kind of played 3, which is I had on PS2, and Revenge, which is on PS2. So, did you have Mega Man X Collection?
No.
Did you have SSX 3?
What's SSX3?
I guess it's a snowboarding game.
No.
Do you have Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3?
No, although that's another very highly regarded game.
I had Tony Hawk 1 and 2 on PlayStation 1, and I love them. I never played the third one. Baton Chaos Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean.
Yeah, I played that multiple times. Love that game.
So is the GameCube a very good PG machine then?
RPGs, you mean?
JRPG?
I mean, nothing's ever going to be as good as because the PS2 was just so many fucking games came out from it. But yeah, it's got a pretty good range of JRPGs.
Here's a game that I never played, but I've always wanted to try. Super Monkey Ball.
I hadn't played it. It looks good though. I'm not really a puzzle person, but
There's another SSX game. Did you play Prince of Persia: Sands of Time?
yep, that was a really good one. Although that was on everything, but I really enjoyed it.
Did you play Phantasy Star Online?
I tried it once. I didn't really care for it, or I couldn't really figure out what the fuck I was supposed to do.
Oh, okay. Super Monkey Ball 2, neither of us played. Okay, Pikmin.
Pikmin was good.
I remember I really like Pikmin, and that was one of those games that I played. I rented it when I was a kid, and then I never got my parents to buy it or anything like that. But then I was able to get it for like $5 or something, and you know, it's an RTS on the console, but it is pretty great actually. I really like that game. There's just like I played until like you run over this thing that mind controls your Pikmin and they kill you. And I remember it scaring the shit out of me so hard that the Pikmin got like mind controlled and I couldn't do anything. And then like they brutally beat your character to death and you lose. And then I had like no idea how to beat it and I just quit. Like, yeah. Okay, Time Splitters Future Perfect.
No, but I've heard good things about it.
All the Time Splitters games are pretty awesome. 2 and Future Perfect, which is 3, are just really really good games. Very good party games. Did you like GoldenEye?
Yeah.
So Time Splitters is actually essentially the unofficial sequel to GoldenEye.
Right.
Metroid Prime 2 Echoes.
It was okay. I never really played it that much. To me, it was the last like good Metroid Prime game, and then they introduced Dark Samus, which I think ruined the franchise. So,
Did you ever play the third one on Wii?
I didn't think it was very good.
Was it unplayable with motion controls?
It's just I don't like that Dark Samus became the focus.
Yeah, so anyway, like I wanted to like play Red Steel. I don't have my Wii right now or a capture
Red
card.
Steel is fun.
It's fucking hilarious. It's really fun to play that with other people and like them just to be confused and like you can't control anything. But like the irony is like I view like the best part of the Wii to me was like, oh, I can play light gun games without a light gun. So like I played a lot of like House of the Dead on the Wii. Okay, Luigi's Mansion.
I
I think
didn't
we already
actually
talked
have
about
that,
this a lot.
but yeah.
It's a really good parody of Resident Evil, and it's just all around fun game. Soul Calibur 2.
Soul Calibur 2 is fucking awesome. I loved it. It was the GameCube version had Link as a playable character, so what's not to love?
It's just fantastic game. Soul Calibur 1 on the Dreamcast, I think, is my favorite fighting game, but Soul Calibur 2 is just an outrageously good game. I think it's probably the second best fighting game. Next game was Time Splitters 2. I already talked about it. Resident Evil Remake, which I'm replaying right now. Did you ever play Resident Evil Remake?
No, it's not really my thing. I prefer the more actiony ones. Um, I don't really like puzzle games. I just don't have the patience for them.
So it's really good. Crimson Heads are really hard, and you'll see me get my ass kicked if you come in and watch it. F-Zero GX.
It looked good. It was extremely difficult. I rented it and I couldn't get past the third level.
I tried to play it and I rented it as well and just got slaughtered. And ironically, F-Zero X is one of my favorite games for the N64, but I just was never able to get into GX. Animal Crossing.
It's good for what it was. I got kind of bored of it, but I give them credit. I give them credit for trying something different. I know I say that a lot, but I mean it's true.
I never played it, so I don't have anything to say about it. Okay, Tales of Symphonia. Did I pronounce
Tales
it
of
wrong?
Symphonia is one of my all-time favorite games. Uh, I think the GameCube version was considered better than the PS2 version. I think they added in additional voice acting and stuff like that. But no, I think it's one of the best JRPGs of all time, in my opinion.
Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes.
Um, it's kind of sad it's never been ported to anything because it is, in my opinion, just vastly superior, at least graphically, to the original. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it was kind of an unexpected but very welcome thing.
So again, I don't have my capture card, but I don't know. I thought it'd be fun to do a let's fail of a Metal Gear Solid. I think you're the one that suggested I do it to try and follow under the footsteps of a particular infamous streamer. Anyway, Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2. I think we talked about this already. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely one of my favorite games for the system. I've never been able to beat it, but I think it might be my favorite Star Wars game of all time. It's definitely up there. Did you ever play Eternal Darkness?
I tried streaming it, I just didn't get very far. It's one of those ones that's always on the list of something I need to get through, I just never get around to.
It's a game I've always wanted to play, but I've never. It's really expensive now, and I just never got to it. Did you ever play Pikmin 2?
Yeah, Pikmin 2 was alright.
I never got to it either. Double Dash, Mario Kart Double Dash.
I played that a lot with my sister, actually.
Yeah, I played that game a lot with my sisters. I think that the GameCube is one of the best party consoles ever.
Mario Party is a legit good party game.
Mm-hmm. Mario Kart and Smash Brothers, and I mean a lot of there are good shooters like Time Splitters, and that Godzilla game is 4 players. Like the GameCube, I mean the GameCube is like a powerhouse to play with your friends, 4 players, and it has that handle which is just sleek and sexy. Okay, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance.
Oh, Path of Radiance was fucking awesome. It was really nice because that was the first Fire Emblem, I think, for like a main console since Super Nintendo. So it was really cool to see the graphics. I think it's some absurd, ungodly amount of money on eBay to get it.
Skies of Arcadia Legends.
Arguably one of the best JRPGs of all time. Fucking amazing game.
Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess.
It's that? Oh, okay. I figured it would be lower, but yeah, one of my favorite Zelda game of all time.
That one's later. I don't like Zelda. Maybe I should give it another try, but never was my thing. Super Smash Brothers Melee.
I think that's the best Super Smash Brothers game, personally.
It is the best-selling game on the system, and I mean, I played like dozens and dozens of hours, maybe hundreds of hours with friends of this game. I'm horrible at it, and I'm actually not bad at fighting games. I just suck at Smash Bros for some reason. Like I'm pretty good at Soul Calibur and Mortal Kombat, but it's just like one of those games that it's like, to this day, after 20 years, people are playing it religiously. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time.
That's good. I have the Master Collection, which you got only if you were a Nintendo Power subscriber. So that actually came with Majora's Mask. Yes, Majora's Mask does exist on the GameCube. But yeah, then they also released Master Quest, which is Ocarina of Time with remixed dungeons, which was kind of cool. So, yep.
Metroid Prime.
Yeah, one of the greatest games of all time, in my opinion. It's one of the few games I'd probably give a 10 out of 10
to. Legend of Zelda Wind Waker.
Another excellent game. A lot of people hated on it because of the art style, but I think it's way better than Skyward Sword or Breath of the Wild.
Again, I never played it, but I know a lot of people very much love it. Paper Mario Thousand Year Door.
Awesome game. I don't know what else to say. Both the Paper Mario games were really good, and then the franchise just went to shit after that. And they refused to go back and do what people want them to do.
Okay, last game. This is supposed to be the #1 GameCube game ever made. Resident Evil 4.
I played it on Wii, and it was really, really good on Wii. Was that what the console it was initially released for?
It was originally exclusive for GameCube, but
really?
Capcom broke off and like backtracked on Nintendo because of how good it was, and then ported it to PS2.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I mean, I don't know if I'd put it as #1, but I do You played Resident Evil 4, right?
I played Resident Evil 4 multiple times. I played through it. I played dozens of hours of it.
I
I've
think
beaten
it's the
all of
best Resident
Mercenaries.
Evil game. Maybe that's kind of a like
It's a very
milk
difficult
toast
thing.
game.
So I would say that Resident Evil 4 is the best combination of horror. I think you told this to me as well. Is the best action game and combination of horror in it, where it's like I think that they meet together evenly. Because if you play Resident Evil 5, it's like it's all action, and if you play Resident Evil 1 on like PS1, it's all horror. But like, there's just something that's so special about
I
that
like
game.
the RPG elements a lot in 4.
Mm-hmm. And like you could play Mercenaries for hours and hours and hours and hours. It's just incredible. Okay, so that's the list of the top 50 GameCube games. Does anybody want to suggest that we talk about any other ones? Talking about Def Jam, but I never played that one.
No, I don't know what Def Jam even is.
Oh, it's a fighting game. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I didn't really have anything else. I think we covered most stuff. I didn't really have anything additional to add. Was there anything anybody wanted us? Yeah, you're right. They didn't list any of the Pokemon games that were for GameCube, although there wasn't too many. I think it was just Colosseum and XD Gale of Darkness. There might have been some other ones that I'm just not remembering, but yeah.
Definitely, definitely its power and its draw has grown over time. And I feel like because the Dolphin is such a good emulator and it continues to be improved and improved, that as disc trays burn out, people are just going to play more GameCube games than PS2 games and Xbox until there's comparable emulators. And I mean, in the case of Xbox, if there ever is going to be one.
Right.
And it's kind of like, I guess the Wii is unique, but that generation is kind of like the last time where you have just a really unique feel with every console. And definitely just a very, like this very at home feel, this very good thing to do at party games. And everybody that has a GameCube that ever grew up with one seems to like love them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I think that pretty much covers it. Thanks for coming on, man. That was a lot of fun. That's a topic I wasn't really on my radar, but it's always good to reflect on the era. It brings back a lot of good memories of weekends playing games with my friends.
Yep.
Okay, well, guys, check out Kerp's channel. He has some good Let's Fails. Hopefully, there'll be some more Let's Fails to come. Thanks for coming on, man. God bless.
Yep. Hey, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm just gonna close this off. Okay, so thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show. More exciting videos